We use the term good a lot these days, but what does that really mean? Does it mean to be loved by others, to be applauded and cheered for by the people around you? Or does it mean to be morally righteous, to fight the good fight and lift up the people that cannot speak for themselves? The story of Wicked does a great job of exploring the question of what it means to be good through the main duo of Elphaba and Glinda. And this video aims to analyze these characters and their motivations in depth. And thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Now, of course, I'm gonna have to talk about spoilers for Wicked and Wicked for Good. Thus, by extension, there will be spoilers for the stage play and the book, so you have been warned. Now, a great place to start would be with Elphaba's childhood. In the first film, we see that Elphaba has a rough upbringing, and that's putting it lightly. Her father rejects her, her sister is ashamed of her, her birth mother passes away while she's still young, and the rest of the Munchkins look down on her. And this is despite being, at least in status, the daughter of the governor of Munchkinland. Instead, Elphaba's primary caretaker is Dulcibert, a literal mama bear. So, of course, Elphaba knows how it feels to be looked down upon simply for being. She's not in any way at fault for being born green, but she's still a person. That is to say, a sentient being who can think, feel, and express rational thought, and yet she is punished by everybody. Her father, her sister, the Munchkins, and the people at Shiz for simply existing and not being what would be considered normal. Now, while this does give us insight into Elphaba's character, this also tells us it punishes people who are different. And Elphaba is especially different, not just because she's green, but because she has a unique affinity towards magic, specifically levitation and telekinesis magic. We see throughout the films that she can make objects float as well as push and pull them depending on her needs. And before she can control her powers, they seem to mainly manifest whenever she experiences strong emotion, but mainly anger. When she's angry at Miss Coddle for infantilizing her sister, or the Munchkin children for teasing her, or even when she's just remembering bad things happening to her, that's when her powers erupt. Elphaba harbors a lot of pent-up anger because of how her life has been, and this actually sets up her primary motivation as a character. Her heart's desire. In the first film, she sings The Wizard and I, which is her I Want song, where she declares that she desires to work with the wonderful Wizard of Oz. In the world of Wicked, the wizard is beloved by the people. He's seen as some sort of miracle worker who can fix any problem, thus everybody in Oz adores him and treats him as an authority figure. Thus, Elphaba looks to the wizard when she sees that the animals are being threatened. And sure, Elphaba claims to want to help the animals and fight for them, and while that is true, that's not her only, nor her primary motivation. Wanting to help the animals is just something that she picked up during the course of the film. In The Wizard and I, Elphaba sings about how people would scream for her when they see her and the wizard working together, and this happens before the animals subplot with Dr. Dilliman gets revealed. While she does have a soft spot for animals stemming from her shared experience of being prejudiced against, as well as being raised by an animal in Dulcibert, her primary motivation as a character, the thing that drives her, is to be loved. And this is confirmed in part 2 when she sings in No Good Deed that she realizes that her motivations behind helping the animals might have been selfish. Her standing up for Nessa when Miss Coddle was infantilizing her was performative, the same way she wanted to help the animals and be recognized as a hero. Thus, Elphaba's desire to do good wasn't rooted in a sense of morality, but it was driven by a desire for fulfillment. She wanted to do good things because she would be loved if she did them. It goes without saying that Elphaba has had a difficult life leading to the events of the films. Elphaba has lacked love her entire life, and this directly stems from her childhood, from being shunned by her father and sister to being bullied by Munchkins. And it's why it's no coincidence that Elphaba's favorite flower happens to be poppies. See, poppy flowers live. And it's unfair on Elphaba's part because she was denied certain privileges just because of the circumstances surrounding her birth. The same way it's unfair that if I wanted to stream the first Wicked film, as well as a lot of my favorite shows, namely Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Rick and Morty, and The Office, I would need 4 separate streaming services just because Peacock isn't available outside of the US. As a content creator, this is a huge pain in the neck, but as a consumer, it's an even bigger pain in my bank account. That's like $40 a month just in streaming subscriptions alone, and that's not even considering that I'd have to pay even more money if I want to watch in higher resolutions, which is a must in this day and age. That's why I save money with the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark. With Surfshark VPN, I can change my IP address, allowing me to access websites and content that otherwise wouldn't be available in my region. Without Surfshark, I couldn't even access the Peacock website where I live, but with Surfshark, I can purchase myself a subscription as easy as that. It's as simple as turning on the VPN, and now all of my favorite shows are on the same platform, meaning I only need to manage one subscription instead of 4. This is a huge help, especially if you're traveling outside of your home country and you want to stay tuned into your favorite shows, or you want to explore what your subscriptions may get you in other parts of the world. But that's not the only thing that Surfshark helps me with. The internet is a virtual goldmine of personal information, and bad actors are always trying to get as much of it as possible, including yours. In this day and age, you don't know who might have access to your name, address, or even your credit card numbers. Thankfully, Surfshark VPN encrypts your online data, allowing you to secure your personal information when browsing the internet, keeping you protected so you can scroll endlessly without a care in the world. So if you're looking for a better browsing experience, go to surfshark.com/thatswack or use code thatswack at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Check out my code in the link in the description and pinned comment down below. Now, regardless of Elphaba's motivations, she's ultimately compelled to do something fundamentally good, which is to stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves. The issue is that her methods are simpler, one that parallels Elphaba in almost every way, and of course I'm talking about Glinda Upland, otherwise known as Glinda the Good. But she wasn't always who she is, especially because when we first meet her, her name is Glinda. Upon being introduced to her character, we immediately notice that she's the complete opposite of Elphaba. While Elphaba is deemed as unsightly by the people of Oz, Glinda is seen as beautiful. She's bright, cheery, and overly positive, and comes from an incredibly well-off family and is valued by them, considering she was able to get her own private suite at Shiz. She's seemingly perfect and has gone through life with everything handed to her on a silver platter. Unfortunately, this in itself bred a character flaw in Glinda. She's incredibly naive. She's unaware of how the world works and expects everybody to cede to her will and be as seemingly perfect as she is. For example, even though Dr. Dillamond physically could not pronounce Glinda's name correctly, she just believed that he wasn't trying hard enough. Another good example is how she offers to fix Elphaba's problem of being green, even though she had just spent the past minute explaining to Glinda and the crowd of students that her being green isn't an issue. And while disrespectful, I don't believe that this instance is Glinda trying to make fun of Elphaba. I think that she genuinely wanted to do Elphaba a favor in trying to cure her greenness, except that she just cannot comprehend that Elphaba has no problem with being green. And like Elphaba, this part of her character likely stems from her childhood. We're led to believe that Glinda had everything handed to her, and everybody loved her, but at the same time, she was blind and apathetic to the problems of the world, particularly when it came to the animals. But what truly set these characters apart was the fact that Elphaba had magic and Glinda didn't. Glinda's motivation as a character, ever since she was a kid, as we'd see in Wicked for Good, had always been to be able to use magic. She had everything that she could ever dream of: a loving family, friends she could rely on, and the adoration of an entire nation. Everything except magic. And we see that in Glinda's childhood flashback scene in Wicked for Good. She values magic as yet another way to get people to love her. See, Glinda needs the validation that comes from being special. After all, she loves being the center of attention and having an audience. In the films, she is frustrated by her lack of magical ability because it is a painful reminder to her that she isn't special. While she may come from a rich family, she, as a mortal, is ultimately as powerful as someone like Bach, and doesn't have the ability to bend the laws of nature to her will like Elphaba or Morrible. And yet she wants that feeling of being magical, so she can truly set herself apart from other people. Which is why in that same childhood flashback scene, she withholds the fact that she wasn't able to make the rainbow from the other children at her birthday party, because she wants people to believe that she's special. And it's when you pair someone who has everything but magic with someone who has nothing but magic that you get absolute chaos, as we see when Elphaba and Glinda are roomed together in Shiz. This contrast is ultimately the source of initial conflict between Glinda and Elphaba. Glinda is initially jealous of Elphaba's magical ability, as well as the special attention that she gets from Madame Morrible, her idol, overbearing. After all, the latter takes up most of the room and constantly asserts her dominance. However, secretly, Elphaba wishes that people would like her just like they adore Glinda. We see their personalities clash as they sing What Is This Feeling, but ultimately they realize how pointless their bickering was and become friends. But what's interesting is the circumstances surrounding the beginning of their friendship. See, Glinda actually makes the first move in becoming friends with Elphaba, but by complete accident. First, she tells Boq to ask Nessa Rose, Elphaba's little sister, to the Ozdust because Glinda is simply not interested in him and wants him off her back. But she's also socially savvy enough to realize that outright rejecting him might not paint her in the best light. But this does make Nessa Rose happy that somebody actually gave her attention. Second, Glinda invites Elphaba to the Ozdust. While yes, this was done with the intention of giving her the ugly black hat and having Elphaba embarrass herself, but to Elphaba, it must have been a pretty big moment. This was the first time in her life that somebody had invited her to anything that wasn't a funeral. To Elphaba, this was more than just an invitation to a dance. This was an invitation to be part of the Shiz community. And Elphaba even takes a liking to the hat. After all, Elphaba loves to wear black, and the hat, being black, matches her outfits perfectly. And while these things from Glinda, thus she does something that Glinda had been pining for in exchange. Elphaba pulling some strings and getting Morrible to take Glinda on as a student of sorcery. And when Glinda realizes what just happened, she makes it up to Elphaba by dancing with her, showing that she accepts her, and in response, the rest of the students begin to accept her too. Note that all of this has happened because of Glinda's self-serving and nefarious intentions. So this begs the question, do intentions even really matter when you commit an act? And what the film is trying to say is that intentions don't matter, but outcomes do, because ultimately it's the outcomes that affect the people around us for better or for worse. To take a main criticisms is that he only does good acts because he's using people for content. But when this person is restoring people's vision, housing the homeless, and building and maintaining wells in Africa, and in the process giving these communities access to clean water, does it really matter that he's doing these things for content? Good things can happen despite self-serving intentions, the same way good intentions can lead to horrible things, as we'll see in Wicked for Good, but more on that later. For now, I want to talk about another big difference that these two characters have: their singing voices. Singing as these characters is no easy feat, but their singing voices are so distinct